pressure. Even through the game that he lost, I mean, he has been resilient. He's been universal. He's been tactically sharp. This is the best version of Alireza. This is the Alireza that maybe still one day will be fighting for the World Championship title. But right now we have a best-of-2 match. Magnus has the white pieces, and he has reverted back to the most popular opening in recent times, the Italian.
And I think that's the reaction that a lot of people have to the Italian because it's such a cagey, slow opening to start with. But Daniel, it's also the most difficult one to face because there are all these little moves and little ideas like does white include h2, h3? Does white include the a pawn moving forward to a4? Where and when does the bishop fall back? Is black first to strike in the center with d5? Or does white get a central break in with d4? And usually it is a slow start, but once we see a central break in, things start to get spicy.
Definitely. Much like the Berlin, the Italian has this reputation as a boring opening. Where does that reputation come from? Because when it's played properly, and when two super GMs make a quick draw in an Italian, we assume it's easy. Then you sit down in front of the black piece and you're like, wait a second, what the heck do I do? We saw this in the CCT play, and Fabiano Caruana, one of the top Italian experts, he won a couple of games against GMs in like 20 moves. He beat Adam Kozak. A single inaccuracy, playing d5 at the wrong moment, playing bishop e6 at the wrong moment can cost you the game very quickly. So it's an opening with a lot of teeth. Right now, Magnus Carlsen is taking his time, queen to b3, not a very conventional approach to this position, forcing Alireza's rook back to f8. I am more used to seeing a pawn on b4 before the queen gets to b3. Try saying that 10 times in a row. Will this position appear on the board 10 times in a row?
Well, the one thing that's a bit of a drawback with the queen moving from the d1 square is that the black knight can jump to h5 because you don't have these tactics of knight takes pawn on e5 because the queen from d1 would have then picked up the knight. So you always have to watch out for that black knight eventually landing on that f4 square, which is an idea that usually works in black's favor.
There's also a trap that I really like to point out. I'm going to put this on the board just so we can get a better hang of what's going on. Alireza has a lot of moves in this position. He can go king h8, h6, so it's hard to predict what he's going to do. If he plays knight h5, bishop to d5 sometimes runs into this really cool tactic. In this position, knight f4 is also good, but I just want to point out knight takes a5 is very commonly missed by top players. Rook takes a5, and then c6, opening up a double attack on the bishop and the rook. This is a trick that is found in the Gleck system from the white side.
would favor the side with the extra pawn. But this would allow the a pawn to move on to b6, which would make a really strong passer. And then I would agree with everything that you just said, that Magnus is going to start getting more than ambitious. Knight coming to c5, that pawn replacing the bishop on b6, the rook from a1 attacking a6. Only Magnus Carlsen can be better there.
That's the thing, right? There's the Magnus effect on full display. You could have 3 extra pawns and you're still going to believe that you're on the defensive. Alireza might very well be on the defensive. From a practical standpoint, I would be very seriously considering a bailout option with rook b8. It's on the board. And does Magnus keep the rooks on the board? Does he play rook c7 here? That would involve giving up another pawn, and more importantly, that would involve giving up the pride of his position, the bishop on b6. If I'm Carlsen, I'm contemplating rook takes b8 and knight c5. Of course, I'm not Magnus Carlsen, unfortunately. So I don't know what he's actually going to go for.
With everything that you just said right now, right? He's probably got to trade. And just as I said, he doesn't. Magnus is going all out in this position. He's giving another pawn.
He's playing for the win. He's going to go knight c5. He's going to put all of his eggs in the piece activity basket. And that's a pretty good basket to put your eggs in, because once the knight gets to c5, it hits the bishop. The bishop doesn't have too many safe squares to jump to. And king f8 runs into rook takes c6 and knight d7. So how easy is it to blunder when you've got just a couple of seconds left and your opponent's knight is wilding? Bishop to d5. Rook takes e5 by Carlsen.
He does regain a pawn, and it turns out to be an inaccuracy. But the fact that Magnus feels he has enough compensation here, to me, that's just amazing. And rook b5, that's a blunder.
There's also this cool tactic. Knight to d7 sets up the sort of semi-threat of rook takes a6. He just plays rook takes a6 straight away, and he wins the pawn back, and suddenly material is equal. How did that happen? How is the pawn count even? Wasn't Alireza just up 2 pawns, potentially even 3?
Just 2 moves ago. It's the Magnus Carlsen effect. Rook d8 played.
How did that happen? How is the pawn count even? Wasn't Alireza just up 2 pawns, potentially even 3?
Just 2 moves ago. It's the Magnus Carlsen effect. Rook d8 played. The material is level. White needs to defend the knight. White's rooks are more active right now. Daniel, how do you evaluate this ending? Do you think after all the material balance has been restored, Alireza can actually bail this out because it's simplified?
Yeah, because I think knight d3 runs into bishop takes f3. Knight e4 allows the bailout option with bishop takes e4. I think that we're going to get a peaceful result in the first game. This game has been anything but peaceful. If Magnus wants to stubbornly cling to chances of winning this game, then you play knight a4. You keep an imbalance on the board. But then you're clinging to chances of losing this game. And Tanya, knight a4, bishop takes f3 is actually still possible, because when the pawn recaptures the rook, it hits the knight. So there's no reason for Magnus to do anything crazy, and they have agreed to a draw.
Wow. A draw offered and a draw accepted. And Alireza Firouzja isn't very happy with that. The one would feel that with the black pieces in a best of 2, an ideal start for Alireza, but he sensed it, that he got an advantage. But getting an advantage against Magnus is